Michael RJ Barrett and the New York Knicks in town tonight to face the Toronto Raptors, but we're going to put that game aside for a second and talk about Canada basketball, because over the course of the last, almost 24 hours, about 16 hours or so, you broke the story yesterday that Jamal Murray committed to playing for Canada in Victoria next June, hopefully beyond that in the Olympics as well. And all of a sudden now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, now RJ Barrett, a long list of Canadians getting in line, and that is huge news for the program.
It really is. It's been a fantastic 24 hours and a real turnaround from where the feeling was, at least towards the program, if not within the program, coming out of the World Cup in China. And you can see a little bit of maybe a strategy at work here, because I think with Jamal Murray getting out in front and announcing and coming saying, look, I'm in both feet, that sort of sets the table. I don't think it would look right for RJ Barrett, just 19 years old, to be the first one to kind of make that splash. So I think that to the extent there has been a strategy, I think it's a good one, where you have Jamal Murray and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's probably 1A, 1B with Jamal Murray in terms of you guys you'd want on that roster. And then, not to take anything away from any of the other guys who've come out and announced, but then RJ Barrett taking advantage of being here in his hometown and making it official, although I think we all expected that announcement to come too. I think it says all kinds of good things. You
don't want to get lost in the good news, but let me at least ask the question. What would have been different, or is it hard to say what would have been different had these guys committed, though, to the World Cup and then not be put in this position where they're in this last-ditch Olympic qualifier in Victoria, and, oh, yeah, by the way, in a very tough group just to try and get to the Olympics? I mean, you kind of do still have to think, like, man, what could have been had these guys just committed, 4 or 5 months ago?
Well, what's the Sam Mitchell line? Wishes and candy. And
if ifs and buts for candies and nuts, we'd all be a rich man.
That's the one. Yeah, I knew you'd be good for that. You're right. I mean, look, the two things would have been served had they been able to get a greater representation from these guys for the World Cup. One, they might have qualified.
Right.
No guarantee. I mean, they still had to beat Lithuania and Australia. I mean, that was a very deep tournament. So that's one. But two, you would have had a training camp, travel, exhibition games, World Cup games, intense games as a group. And that, to me, is the only weakness, presuming these players line up, and when you look at the potential lineups Nick Nurse is going to have to work with, I mean, you'd be happy to have it as an NBA team. I mean, they're deep and long, and they can shoot, and you can see them flipping in and out of various positions. It's a perfect Nick Nurse team in a way, but they have zero experience as a group, and they have very limited experience individually in the international game, and so they're going to have to get up to speed really quickly, and there's no margin for error. So that is the reality of it. I want to say it's bad news. These are good problems to have, that you have this kind of young talent, but they've got to start somewhere, and it's going to be in Victoria in June.
Now, we mentioned the tough group at the World Cup, but now a very tough group as well at this qualifier in Victoria, which is not going to make things easier for Canada. Most notably, Greece, and having to deal with Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Potentially, right?
Potentially, true.
I mean, honestly, there's another way to look at this. I agree. Like, the idea of having to beat Greece with Giannis, look, you can't overlook that, and don't overlook Czech Republic, and don't overlook Turkey, the top three teams in that group. But let's just say, sorry, Toronto Raptors fans, let's just say it's the Milwaukee Bucks who make the NBA Finals, and they're playing 6 or 7 games. Giannis will be, if he does play, he'll probably won't be at his best. There is a potential he might not play. That's a lot to ask coming off an NBA Finals to go and play in another tournament like that. And then the other thing about the way that works out, I think we can all look at this a different way. If you're Greece or Turkey or Czech Republic, the other sort of higher-end teams in that group of 6, they have got to be hitting themselves that they're drawn into a group with Canada. Canada's been playing possum basically for 4 years, right? They're the number one. They're the 21 ranked team. The team that has earned that ranking looks nothing like the team that's potentially going to be in Victoria. And all of a sudden, if Canada was able to have their NBA players playing all these years, they would be the top 6 or 7 team. So I think you look at the other 4 qualifying terms, there is always going to be 1 or 2 very tough teams. So I don't really subscribe to the idea that it's a tougher group than most. I think, if anything, it's the other teams that are kind of really kicking themselves that they're in a group with Canada.
All right, so it is the Raptors and Knicks going at it tonight at Scotiabank Arena, and RJ Barrett earlier today again saying 100% when asking if he would commit to the Canadian program for next summer. So he's in, and we'll see maybe who is next. But again, tonight, 7:30, Toronto and New York, as the Raptors look to remain undefeated at home.